For more than 60 years, television fans have known Tina Louise as Ginger Grant, the glamorous movie star who somehow brought Hollywood style to a deserted island. But today, her story feels very different. At 92, Tina Louise is the last surviving member of the original Gilligan's Island cast. The laughter remains, the reruns remain, the island remains frozen in time. But the 7 actors who once made that strange little world feel alive are now represented by just one living star. So what happened to Tina after the cameras stopped rolling? Why did she walk away from the reunions? And how does it feel to become the final living connection to one of television's most famous sitcoms? This is her story, and there is one reason her story matters now. Gilligan's Island was never designed to become a monument. It was a comedy about people who could not get off an island, filled with coconut inventions, impossible coincidences, and jokes that reset by the next episode. Yet viewers kept returning to it. Children discovered it after school, parents remembered watching it first run, and later generations found it through cable and streaming. Tina watched that cycle continue for decades. What began as one job in an acting career became the role strangers would mention for the rest of her life. Few performers get to witness a character become cultural memory while they are here to see it. For millions of viewers, Ginger Grant was impossible to ignore. While Gilligan stumbled into disaster, the skipper shouted orders, the professor built impossible inventions, and the Howells tried to preserve high society in the middle of nowhere, Ginger brought something completely different to the island. She was Hollywood glamour in an environment where glamour should not have existed. Tina Louise played Ginger as a movie star who could be elegant, playful, dramatic, romantic, and funny without losing the sense that she belonged in a completely different world. That contrast helped make the character memorable. The series ran for only 3 seasons, from 1964 to 1967, but syndication transformed it into something much larger than its original network run. Decades later, the cast slowly disappeared. Jim Backus died in 1989. Alan Hale Jr. followed in 1990. Natalie Schafer died in 1991. Bob Denver died in 2005. Russell Johnson died in 2014. Then Dawn Wells, the beloved Mary Ann, died in 2020. With her passing, Tina Louise became the last surviving member of the original principal cast. That fact changed the meaning of her place in television history. She was no longer simply the actress who played Ginger. She became the final living link to all 7 castaways. But Tina's life had already been extraordinary long before anyone imagined Gilligan's Island. Long before the red hair, evening gowns, and famous island, Tina Louise was a New York girl with a complicated childhood and a growing need to find her own direction. Born on February 11, 1934, she spent significant parts of her early life away from her parents. Her parents separated when she was young, and in later years she spoke openly about the loneliness and emotional difficulty of childhood. Those experiences became an important part of her memoir, Sunday, in which she looked back on the years before fame, with far less glamour than fans might expect. Acting did not begin as some carefully planned Hollywood dream. Instead, performance gradually became a place where she discovered confidence, movement, applause, and a sense of possibility. She studied acting and began working on stage, including Broadway. By the 1950s, she was not waiting for television to make her famous. She was already building a serious career. Then came the movie that changed everything. In 1958, Tina appeared in God's Little Acre, a drama directed by Anthony Mann. Her performance earned her a Golden Globe as New Star of the Year, actress. Suddenly, she was not simply a promising performer. Hollywood had announced her as someone worth watching. She followed with film and television work and cultivated an image very different from the sitcom character that would later define her. She was glamorous, yes, but she also wanted to be viewed as a real actress with range. That ambition explains why the next chapter of her career became both a blessing and a problem. Because in 1964, a television role arrived that looked temporary. Instead, it followed her for the rest of her life. The opportunity came while Tina was appearing on Broadway in Fade Out, Fade In with Carol Burnett. CBS approached her about a character described as a combination of Lucille Ball and Marilyn Monroe. The role was Ginger Grant, a movie star who would become one of 7 people stranded after a 3-hour tour went very wrong. At first, Tina did not expect the job to dominate her career. She later recalled that she thought the show might last only a short time, and that she could return to the kind of work she had been training to do. But even before Gilligan's Island became a hit, there was trouble. According to Tina's later account, the version of Ginger she had agreed to play began changing. The character was becoming more sarcastic, and Tina disliked the direction enough that she wanted to leave. She believed audiences would not respond warmly to a glamorous woman who looked inviting but behaved unpleasantly. She raised the issue with CBS. The production changed direction, and director Richard Donner became involved. Ginger moved closer to the original idea. The character became colorful, funny, glamorous, and warm enough to fit naturally with the strange family forming around her. That decision mattered. Gilligan's Island premiered in September 1964 and became a familiar part of American television. The premise was simple enough to explain in a sentence. 7 people leave on a short boat trip. A storm strands them on an island, and every possible rescue somehow goes wrong. Yet the real attraction was not the plot. It was the chemistry. Bob Denver's Gilligan could ruin a plan with one mistake. Alan Hale Jr.'s skipper could explode in frustration and forgive him moments later. Russell Johnson's professor could construct almost anything except a permanent escape. Jim Backus and Natalie Schaefer turned the Howells into absurdly wealthy socialites who somehow packed half their lifestyle for a 3-hour tour. Dawn Wells gave Marianne warmth and normality. And then there was Ginger. Tina's character carried the fantasy of old Hollywood onto the island. She could imitate celebrities, perform songs, flirt with a visitor, rehearse a scene, or turn a ridiculous situation into a miniature movie moment. Her wardrobe made no practical sense for a shipwreck, which was exactly why it worked. Gilligan's Island was never interested in realism. It was interested in creating a bright, comforting world viewers could revisit. The show filmed 98 episodes, and Tina Louise became internationally recognizable. But fame can give an actor exactly what they wanted and still create a problem they never expected. To an audience, landing a hit television series sounds like the end of the struggle. For Tina, it created another kind of struggle. Before Gilligan's Island, she had already won a Golden Globe, worked in films, performed on Broadway, and trained seriously as an actress. After the series became a syndication phenomenon, however, millions of people saw only Ginger Grant. That is the strange power of television. A film role may live for 2 hours. A sitcom character can walk into someone's home every afternoon for decades. As reruns reached new generations, Ginger became younger while Tina became older. Viewers who had not even been born when the show was canceled could discover her exactly as she appeared in 1964. The role never aged. For years, stories circulated claiming Tina hated Gilligan's Island. Her absence from later reunion movies strengthened that belief. When the cast returned in television films, Tina did not return as Ginger, and other actresses stepped into the part. But the story was more complicated than simple resentment. In later interviews, Tina said she enjoyed playing Ginger once the character was written in the way she believed worked. She also acknowledged the happiness the series brought audiences. Her decision not to keep returning to the island was tied to something understandable for any performer. She wanted to keep moving. She had spent 3 years as Ginger. She did not want every next chapter to be another version of the same chapter, so she chose a path that separated her from many of her castmates. Instead of living mainly through nostalgia, Tina went back to acting. Once Gilligan's Island ended in 1967, Tina Louise did something important. She kept working. Her post-Island career included film and television roles that gave her opportunities to move away from the exaggerated glamour of Ginger. She appeared in The Wrecking Crew, later played Charmaine in the 1975 science fiction thriller The Stepford Wives, and took television roles on programs including Dallas, where she appeared as Julie Gray. She also guest starred across a wide range of television, building a career that was far broader than the 3 seasons most people remembered. That did not mean Ginger disappeared. No matter how many different characters she played, Gilligan's Island remained the title attached most strongly to her name. For an actor who had worked hard to be taken seriously before the sitcom, that could be frustrating, yet time softened the public conversation around it. Tina eventually spoke with warmth about the joy the series gave viewers. She explained that people felt as though they knew her because she had been in their homes for so many years. In that sense, syndication created a strange relationship between actress and audience. Fans remembered a character. Tina carried an entire life that existed beyond the character. There was also a surprising financial reality behind the show's enormous afterlife. In a 2025 interview, Tina said the cast earned about $1,500 per episode and that she did not receive residual money from the endless reruns that kept the show visible for generations. The sitcom became television history, but the performers did not automatically become rich from that later success. Still, she did not describe acting as a career driven only by money. She continued to emphasize the work itself. And away from Hollywood, another role became even more important. The public knew Tina as a glamorous star, but the center of her private life became family. She married television host Les Crane in 1966. Their marriage later ended, but they had a daughter, Caprice Crane, who grew up to become a writer and television producer. Tina has spoken proudly about motherhood, especially because her own childhood had been emotionally difficult. That contrast gives her later life a deeper meaning. A woman who remembered feeling separated, unsettled, and lonely as a child eventually described raising her own daughter as a source of enormous happiness. In recent years, she has also spoken excitedly about becoming a grandmother to twins. But family was not the only place she found purpose. Tina became deeply involved in helping children read. For years, she volunteered with young students in New York, treating literacy not as a celebrity appearance, but as regular work. The glamorous woman from the island was now sitting with children, helping them build confidence one word at a time. It is a surprising image only if we imagine famous people as frozen in their most famous role. Tina Louise was never frozen. She acted, wrote books, raised a daughter, became a grandmother, and kept finding reasons to stay active. Her memoir gave her a way to confront difficult memories rather than hide them behind Hollywood mythology. Yet, as her own life continued, the television family around her grew smaller. One by one, the castaways were gone. For 3 seasons, 7 performers created one of television's strangest families. They were not related. Their characters came from completely different social worlds. A sailor, a captain, a millionaire, his wife, a movie star, a professor, and a farm girl should have had almost nothing in common. The island made them a family. Then time slowly separated them in real life. Jim Backus, the unforgettable Thurston Howell III, died in 1989. His voice and comic arrogance had given the millionaire a ridiculous charm that made him far more lovable than he should have been. Alan Hale Jr., the skipper, died in 1990. His booming frustration and affectionate relationship with Gilligan became one of the emotional engines of the series. Natalie Schafer, who played Lovey Howell with perfect sophistication, died in 1991. Bob Denver, the face of the show and the actor forever associated with Gilligan's white sailor hat, died in 2005. Russell Johnson, whose professor seemed capable of solving every scientific problem except how to get everyone home, died in 2014. Then came Dawn Wells. As Mary Ann, Dawn represented warmth, kindness, and an everyday sincerity that balanced Ginger's movie star glamour. For decades, fans jokingly debated Ginger or Mary Ann, turning 2 very different characters into permanent pop culture opposites. Dawn Wells died in December 2020 from causes related to COVID-19. And suddenly, Tina Louise stood alone. The significance was impossible to miss. For the first time since Gilligan's Island entered American homes in 1964, only one of its 7 principal performers remained alive. That does not mean Tina became responsible for carrying everyone else's memories. Each actor had a life, career, family, and legacy of their own. But to fans, her continued presence became symbolic. When people see Tina today, they are seeing someone who worked beside Bob Denver, Alan Hale Jr., Jim Backus, Natalie Schafer, Russell Johnson, and Dawn Wells when all 7 were still creating episodes that would outlive them. She is the last person from that central cast who can speak from inside that experience. And at 92, her life looks very different from Ginger Grant's endless island adventure. Today, Tina Louise lives in New York and has largely stepped away from the daily machinery of Hollywood. She is not constantly chasing interviews or trying to recreate Ginger for nostalgic audiences. She has said she remains open to acting if a role interests her, but her life is no longer organized around auditions. Instead, family and ordinary routines appear to matter more. She has spoken about visiting her daughter and grandchildren, enjoying the role of grandmother, and continuing to value the literacy work that became such an important part of her later years. There is something fitting about that quieter chapter. Ginger Grant was written as a woman who could never escape being a movie star. Even while stranded on an island, she remained glamorous, theatrical, and connected to the identity Hollywood had created for her. Tina Louise did the opposite. She spent decades proving that a person could have a famous image without allowing that image to become the whole person. The irony is that the more she moved beyond Gilligan's Island, the more permanent Gilligan's Island became. Reruns, streaming, clips, nostalgia, merchandise, and television history kept returning audiences to that beach. The island never moved. Tina did. And now, more than 6 decades after the series began, she has reached an age none of the other principal cast members reached, while still carrying this shared history. When people hear the name Tina Louise, many still picture Ginger Grant first. That is not a small achievement. Creating one character memorable enough to survive for more than half a century is something most actors never experience. Ginger's red hair, glamorous dresses, movie star voice, and playful confidence became part of the visual language of classic television. But Tina's story becomes more interesting when we look beyond the island. She was an actress before Ginger. She was a Golden Globe winner before Ginger. She worked after Ginger. She became an author, mother, grandmother, and literacy volunteer. She lived long enough to see a television series that critics once dismissed become a permanent piece of American popular culture. She also lived long enough to say goodbye to every other member of the show's principal cast. That is the part of the story no one could have imagined in 1964. Back then, 7 actors stood together on a soundstage pretending to be stranded. Today, one remains. At 92, Tina Louise is more than the last surviving cast member of Gilligan's Island. She is the final living witness from the core group that created the show. Her presence connects the era of 3-network television to the age of streaming, when viewers can watch the same episodes on demand more than 60 years later. Perhaps that is why her story feels unexpectedly emotional. Gilligan's Island was built around a joke that the castaways could never get home, but real life moved forward relentlessly. Careers changed, families grew, friendships faded or endured, decades passed. And eventually, time did what the island never could. It separated the cast. Tina Louise remains, not trapped as Ginger Grant, but remembered through her, and perhaps that is the most remarkable ending possible for a woman who spent so many years trying to prove there was more to her than one unforgettable role. So what do you think Tina Louise's greatest legacy really is? Is it Ginger Grant, the glamorous character who made her a television icon, or the much longer life she built after leaving the island behind? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more unforgettable stories from television's golden age. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.